When you think of a capital city, whether it be Paris, London, or Tokyo, you usually imagine a city that's the most powerful and populated in the country it represents. Of course, there's a few outliers in this, but it mostly holds true. So you can imagine my surprise when I came across this capital city that not only is neither of these two things, but in fact has absolutely zero people living there. Yes, zero. Now, this city, known as Plymouth, isn't actually the capital of a country, but rather of an overseas British territory, more specifically, Montserrat. Known as the Emerald Isle of the Caribbean, this island is located 1,347 miles southeast of Miami, making up a part of the Leeward Islands. It's just 12 miles long and 7 miles wide. Montserrat's capital, Plymouth, had once been by far the largest settlement on the island, with a population of around 4,000, and as such had been a bustling port town on the southwestern coast, the site of almost all the island's shops and services. Imagine vibrant markets, serene beaches, lush landscapes, and of course many tourists. But everything changed in July 1995, when the city started to become uninhabitable. Now you might be wondering, how can a capital city become completely devoid of inhabitants? And the answer to this lies in the Soufriere Hills volcano, which, as you guessed, ended up erupting for the first time in almost 400 years, marking the beginning of a series of devastating events that would ultimately lead to Plymouth meeting the same fate as Pompeii, the ancient Italian city that was destroyed to volcanic eruption almost 2,000 years earlier. Beginning on July 18th, a series of huge volcanic eruptions sent ash falls across a wide area of southern Montserrat, including the capital, Plymouth. It was soon clear that the town was in grave danger. The eruption soon buried Plymouth under 39 feet of mud and ash, with pyroclastic flows of hot rock and lava reaching 50 to 60 feet high in some places. Homes and businesses were destroyed, buried under layers of volcanic debris. Villages like St. Patrick's and Morris were swept away in less than 20 minutes. This catastrophic event forced residents to flee for their lives, rendering the southern part of the island uninhabitable and not safe for travel. The government had no choice but to declare it an exclusion zone. Few imagined that when a vent in the volcano began smoking, it would awaken with such vengeance. The volcano wasn't finished though. Through 1997, smaller eruptions continued to reshape the landscape, spitting ashes all over the lush greenery and rugged, majestic hills. Then, on June 25th of that year, another major eruption occurred, and a pyroclastic flow killed 19 people in the Streatham village area, with several others suffering severe burns. Between August 4th to August 8th, a further series of large eruptions destroyed approximately 80% of Plymouth, burying it under almost 5 feet or 1.4 meters of ash. The government ordered the evacuation of Plymouth, with the Royal Navy assisting by taking the population to safety. This turned out to be particularly devastating to Montserrat, not so much as the literal volcanic eruption of course, but that many of its already small population was forced to flee. Between 1995 and 2000, 2/3 of the island's total population fled, many of whom settled in the United Kingdom, leaving fewer than 1,200 people resident on the island as of 1997. By the end of that year, nearly 2.7 square miles of forests, agricultural land, and villages were flattened by debris and pyroclastic flow after a volcanic eruption. Plymouth was evacuated for the final time, abandoned to be slowly buried under repeated mudflows, and a state of emergency was declared. During this time, Plymouth had been divided into risk zones. During some periods, entry into Plymouth was prohibited, and at other times, it was allowed during daytime only to those with a means of rapid escape. The last time that access was legally allowed to Plymouth during the daytime was June 16, 1997, with the exception of essential services. Later, in recognition of the disaster in 1998, the people of Montserrat were granted full residency rights in the United Kingdom, allowing them to migrate if they chose, with most eventually receiving citizenship a few years later in 2002. So many of those who originally fled never ended up coming back. During this time, the capital of the island was temporarily moved up north to the town of Braids, yet Plymouth still technically remained the legal capital. And even then, the volcano still wasn't completely done. During the early 2000s, the volcano's activity consisted mostly of infrequent ash venting into the uninhabited areas in the south. Occasionally, ash falls extended into the northern and western parts of the island. The most recent period of increased activity at the Soufriere Hills volcano was from November 2009 through February 2010, which culminated in a volcanic explosion that sent pyroclastic flows down several sides of the mountain. This latest eruption occurred on February 7, 2010. While no ash has fallen since, the volcano remains active, emitting gases sporadically. The constant threat of further eruptions has kept the area inhospitable and dangerous. After the volcanoes that devastated the land, various humanitarian relief agencies worked together to provide relief for all citizens affected by the eruptions. They helped people evacuate from active volcano areas and began housing 200 people in an unfinished multi-purpose center and providing food to them and other citizens in need. So, what's happening now? Is there any potential for the abandoned capital to rise from the ashes, literally, and make a comeback to what it once was? Well, since 2014, the southern part of the island area has been split into multiple subzones, with varying entry and use restrictions, based on volcanic activity. Some outskirt areas even being open 24 hours and inhabited. The most dangerous zone, Zone V, which includes the former capital, only very recently became open to the public under strict terms, having been forbidden to casual visitors due to the hazards, especially due to the lack of maintenance in destroyed areas. It's only legal to visit this area when accompanied by a government-authorized guide, along with having a license from the Royal Montserrat Police Force. It's a pretty surreal place to see. Imagine walking through a city frozen in time. The streets are quiet, with abandoned buildings covered in plants and ash. Rusty cars sit in driveways, and old shops show signs of the city's past. What was once a bustling capital now holds only memories. Churches, schools, and community centers where generations gathered are now silent reminders of the island's history. Before the disaster, tourism and agriculture were Montserrat's economic pillars. However, after the eruption, both industries suffered significant losses. The closure of airports and seaports post-eruption led to a sharp decline in tourist spending. Travel into parts of the exclusion zone is occasionally permitted, but like I said, only with a license, so it's not open to everyone. Though the appeal of an abandoned city due to a volcano could eventually make it a bigger tourist attraction than what it used to be. The agricultural sector continues to underperform due to the eruptions, which damaged or made inaccessible most of the island's agricultural land. But some potatoes, onions, and other vegetables are still produced for the domestic market. Additionally, the hurricane season lasts between June and November, with extremely stormy weather occurring outside this period. These natural disasters have put the population of Montserrat under great strain, reducing the habitable area to only a third of the island. Nevertheless, the population figure has risen to over 4,300 since 2016, representing over a 300% increase in the island's population since 1997. This is obviously because the northern part of Montserrat remains largely unaffected by volcanic activity and is considered entirely safe. This area is lush and green, a stark contrast to the southern exclusion zone. The volcano is under constant surveillance by the Montserrat Volcano Observatory, which monitors all activity of Soufriere Hills. It's for this reason that Braides, which you see is very far up north, continues to be the capital city. Braides has basically become what Plymouth was, the largest city in Montserrat, though even today, it's still supposed to be just temporary. In fact, there's even a town under construction called Little Bay that will become the future capital. Originally announced in 2015, there's been a number of delays in building the town of Little Bay, but the Little Bay Port Development Project, a $36 million project funded by the UK and the Caribbean Development Bank, began in June 2022 to create it. It remains to be seen what will come of it, but one thing's for certain, there is no way back for Plymouth to reclaim its status as the active capital city anytime soon. I mean, who knows when the volcano may erupt again. Though Montserrat may never be the same, despite losing their capital and enduring economic hardship, its people are determined to rise above the ashes. The story of Montserrat stands as a powerful testament to the resilience of its people in the face of nature's relentless force. As many on the island say, Montserrat is not a volcano, it has a volcano. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more content just like this, and I'll see you in the next one.